So let's get started. First, Jeroen, could you please tell us a little bit more about your role in our national program on recognition and rewards?
Sure, Kim. I am a co-chair of the steering committee together with Rianne. So we kind of coordinate the coordinating steering group, and we coordinate the committees that are within the universities, in the university medical centers, and the research institutes, and they are working on implementing the new recognition and reward rules, so to say.
Mm-hmm.
So that steering committee is important to ensure that everything goes according to a plan, that the plan of the paper or the position paper, and that's what Rianne and I do. We try to manage that a little bit.
And how do you see this role as chair of this program board?
Oh, it's a beautiful role. For me, it was the reason why I actually wanted to become rector, to be able to work on this program. And I'm from the university side doing that together with the rector of the Technical University in Eindhoven. And that also means that Frank and I will report back to the other rectors. So we are with 14 together. Mm-hmm. So whenever we have meetings with all the universities, we will try to emphasize how important it is that we make progress. And I think that's really important, so that we also keep all the 14 universities aligned. And then in the national steering group that Jeroen just referred to there, we do that with all the stakeholders. Mm-hmm. And it's for me, it's the best part of my job.
And why are you so motivated to work on this theme?
Well, I'm also an active researcher still. So I have a research group in the Amsterdam University Medical Center. And I see every day how young people are working and striving to compete, to be the best they can be at everything. They have to be good at teaching, they have to be good at doing science, they have to be good at translating science to a broader audience. And I see them being kind of constricted in that framework. So I'm really motivated from that observation of young people who are spread too thinly to work towards a system that is a little bit more relaxed and a little bit more inclusive, and that judges people more broadly. So my motivation really comes, I think, from a personal experience with doing research.
Yeah, and you really hope that you could give young scientists of today different options in their career, and not only a one-size-fits-all.
I hope that they can develop themselves as they would like to develop themselves. So in the old system, we had like a checklist, and whenever there was an evaluation coming up, they would have to, see that they had done enough publications, and that they did enough research, and that they did enough education, and all these boxes had to be ticked. And I think it would be much better if young scientists can choose a profile, mm-hmm. what they would like to do, and then develop themselves along that profile, along the lines of that profile. That is something that I think we're only just beginning to do, mm-hmm. and really need some more discussion to see how actually these profiles can be built.
Yeah. And Rianne, could you share what we did last year? So we started our program mm-hmm. 1 year ago. Mm-hmm. Could you share some highlights of what we already did?
Yes, of course. Year? Actually, we did quite a lot, which is surprising, maybe also because we are in this COVID period where work pressure is enormous. It is already enormous in our sector, but this year even more. So I'm actually quite satisfied with what we've done. We've set up 14 university rewarding and recognition committees that are currently developing the vision of the university with regard to the national program, and also steering and stimulating the dialogue within the communities, because mm-hmm. that's most important, that the dialogue is there. And that has even resulted in a few universities already presenting the vision to their community, Twente, Utrecht, Tilburg, and I recommend everyone to go to the websites of these universities because they're very inspiring. And all the other universities are in that same process. Some will come before the summer. All committees are set and are working on a daily basis. Next to that, we've organized several webinars like we're doing today. And maybe that sounds a little bit strange, but because of COVID, people could, of course, not travel to these events, but they will log in, and it costs less time. If you have to go to Utrecht, The Hague, or Amsterdam for another meeting, that is quite time-consuming. But logging into a webinar is easy, and because of that, we had really a lot of participants attending and sharing their ideas and their concerns, even internationally. So not only national webinars, but we also did some international webinars. We'll probably talk about that today, because some academics are concerned that it will influence their international competition. So we've also tried to at least see how the outside world is viewing our program. And also there we saw lots of international attention for our program. Let me see.
Maybe Jeroen could add.
Yeah, so
what you've seen this year.
I fully agree with Rianne that we've done a lot of good work. I think what is also a highlight is the new strategy evaluation protocol. So that is a way of evaluating your research groups in the Netherlands. So if you are a research group and you want to be evaluated, or you need to be evaluated, you can use this format, and then you can choose yourself how you want to be evaluated. If you know you're good at A, B, and C, then you'll just say, I want to be evaluated on A, B, and C, but not on D, E, and F. Because that's just not my thing. That's not my profile, as we said before. So that, I think, is very interesting, a more inclusive and more pluriform way of analyzing people, evaluating people. At the funders, we have the narrative CV. So we don't ask people to come up with this lists of metrics, how many publications, which journal impact factors, etc. But we ask them to tell their story and just guide their reviewers into their lives as researchers. And talking about journal impact factors, MWO and Zonnewe don't ask for journal impact factors anymore, and don't ask for age indices and stuff like that. So we're completely metrics free already.
Yeah, and you can learn more about that in one of our workshops this afternoon. And on the strategy evaluation protocol, there's also a video in the video booth. So if you're interested, please also have a look there. Anne-Roos, you're on our table to maybe ask a question from the chat.
Yeah, there's a question for Rianne. What is your expectation of reaching the goal of cultural change at all universities?
Well, my expectation is that we will see that it's happening, and which is already actually visible. There are universities, as I said, that have already implemented or released the vision on recognition and reward. But even further, there are groups that are experimenting by evaluating their staff members through the lens of recognition and reward. And we would also call today on our audience to start those experiments. We've allowed for pilots in research groups, in departments, in faculties to see what it actually does. So my expectations are very high.
Yeah, and in earlier conversations we've had online this year, you also said to me, I more and more think that leadership is really crucial for this culture change. Could you explain?
No, absolutely, because that's also why it's so an important component in the whole program. If we are not investing in what is good leadership, then we will not reach any of our objectives, because in the end it's the academic leader of a certain group that will be doing the assessments of the individuals. So we need to develop them, we need to train them, and also you need to be able to develop yourself as a leader. Whereas now you just have to do it on top of all your other jobs. We have leaders that should actually not be a leader, but are very good in research and education, which they should do, but preferably not in any leadership roles. And that is a discussion that we need to take serious, but also invest in leadership. So that means you need to get time for that, you need to get rewards for that, because it's really difficult also to be a good leader. And we need to acknowledge that as well.
You're the young scientists of our days. Why is recognition and rewards important? What needs to change in academia?
So I'll start on behalf of Young Science in Transition. I think we've already heard quite a bit this morning. You were already saying that it's very important that young academics get the opportunity to form their own profile and to make their own choices. And I think that it's great to see that professors are already being evaluated on the basis, so no longer being evaluated on the basis of an age index or output. But we should not forget that in many institutions, a lot of PhDs or young researchers are still being evaluated on the basis of output. So we should really get rid of the output metrics everywhere, also lower in the hierarchy.
Yeah, yeah. So we need to translate that all through the different layers of university. Hanneke, what would you need to be rid of?
Well, I think the idea that there is the five-legged sheep, or that there is everyone has to be similar. I think the diversification is very important, because there are different roles in academia, and to make sure that we can have these roles with high quality, we cannot ask everyone to do everything. So I think that is what the Young Academy really wants to see changed.
To have a diversification of roles.
Yeah, so really being a good teacher, but then not having to excel in research at the same time, because you simply cannot do everything. And I think there are people that think they can do everything, but in fact you should wonder, what is there have to be sacrifices if you do outreach and you have to supervise PhD students. Then perhaps your supervision is a little bit less dedicated, because you have other things that you have to focus on. And I think making very clear what your profile is that you can excel in that particular part, and then looking as science as a system. If you do it together, we can have high quality on all levels, and I think that is really important.
Okay, Rosanne, how does the PhD network think about this?
Well, in addition to what has already been said, I am hoping, or we're hoping very much, that this recognition and awards movement will also make science or academia a nicer place to work at. And what we see now is that there's such a competitive environment, but competitive in quite a toxic sense, that I think that a lot of high quality researchers who are doing their PhD at the moment actually think like, you know what, I'm not going to do this. This is not for me. And I think we're losing a lot of talent that way.
And are there also concerns from your community? Because you're the population that is in the middle of this transition. So I can also imagine there are some concerns you would like to share with the audience and with us.
Yeah, absolutely. So 2 questions that are living in our community at the moment is, first of all, what is recognition and awards? When we talk to our members who are not individual PhD candidates, but representatives at the different universities and medical centers, a lot of them are not yet involved in these discussions, whether at national or local university level. So I feel like that is really important. And also what Annemijn has also said is that we are still being evaluated really on the basis of, you know, how many articles have you published, or how many chapters does your dissertation have, as well as did you make the 30 credits that you have to do. But we do so much more than that. You know, a lot of PhD candidates are doing teaching, they're developing courses, they're doing societal impact, they're doing management tasks. So the second question is also, how can we measure that? You know, if we need to measure that, how can we measure quality rather than quantity in order to keep these talented people with us?
Yeah, so you're also saying that the whole assessment of the PhD trajectory during the years, but also at the end, should be revised, because now you're being assessed at the end on the basis of your manuscript. And if we want to really implement the principles of the program also for PhDs, then that should really be changed. And I think we haven't given that enough attention yet. So we're actually discussing mostly after the PhD has been obtained. And I think we need to talk also with the steering group that it has to start from the moment you enter a PhD track.
Absolutely, because that assessment is for now still really traditional, and it looks at the end product and not necessarily at the entire process you go through in a trajectory.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So, Hanneke, from the Young Academy, you came up with a report that is called "Goed voorbeeld doet volgen" in Dutch. What is that? What does that report say? What is in that?
Well, we were really thinking like if we want to make the transition to a new reward and recognition system, are there examples out there? Because I think you can learn from examples, and we found them. So we interviewed 8 persons with a very, I think a very nice route that they followed. And for example, looking at the University of Ghent, there it seems to be a lot less. How do you say it? Conditional. So it is unconditional. So you're an excellent scientist. We want to have you in our university. And rather than to see if you are successful in what you achieve, if you have a year that it doesn't go that well, you have a support system that looks like why didn't you manage to have success in that area that you anticipated? Yeah. And then you get support to actually achieve it next year. So it's also taking into account that within the contracts of a few years, that sometimes you have a year that is not going so well, and then to have unconditional support from a support system that consists of your peers, but also people that are independent from your research field. Have you actually develop skills and support that you can do what you have to do. And I think that is creating a safe environment. And I think that was one of the examples that we really felt like if you can have such a setup, that can also make people get the best out of themselves and the best for the system, because I think that is in the end what you want. You don't want people that are just running around to get all the numbers and the metrics, but the whole story needs to fit. And that also means that if you have a bad year, that doesn't mean you're not a good scientist anymore.
Exactly.
But the Young Academy is known to be a network of very high qualified researchers, top scientists. So what are you changing in your own selection procedure in order to get a more diverse group of academics that we are looking for?
Well, at least we actually also got rid of the metric. So it's really looking at the narrative that we implemented, and also to really keep an open mind, for example, for people that have a more educational profile. So old school, we are more like the scientists, but we're really like, okay, we have to look for other talents because there is more talent out there. So we are at least aware, open-minded, and we changed a little bit of how we did the selection of
important. That's important. Annemij, now you represent the Young Science in Transition group, and I think maybe for our audience it's also good that you explain a little bit what your objectives are.
Yes.
And also from your perspective, what are the concerns? Because we are of course very positive about everything that's happening, but we're also not naive, and we also want to improve. So can you answer both questions?
I'll give a short introduction on who a Young Science in Transition is. So we're a group of early career researchers at the UMC Utrecht, ranging from PhD candidates to associate professors, all from different disciplines within the UMC. Well, I should say also now outside the UMC, because we're expanding. Good. And so on a yearly basis, we organize various mini symposia on themes like open science, team science, and of course, recognition and rewards. And our goal is to eventually come up with concrete actions for early career researchers that we can actually use in our daily practices. And Rian, you were already saying it's important that we start evaluating PhDs in a different way. And I'm proud to say that's one of our concrete actions, that we've already developed a new evaluation system for PhDs.
What does it look like, the new system?
So basically, my own experience was that I was still having to fill out a Word form every year, which had 3 first questions. How many articles did you publish last year? How many abstracts? How many prizes did you get? And especially when you're in your first years, the answer is going to be 0, 0, 0. And it's not that you haven't developed any skills. So we decided to get rid of all these questions.
Very demotivating.
And then we just introduced an open question asking the PhD candidate, so what are your 2 best accomplishments? And of course, this can still be an article, because we shouldn't be getting rid of the articles in total, but it can also be something else. For example, dealing with a difficult situation within your PhD team and then solving it, or organizing an event. So I guess this really sets the tone, because if you teach PhD students to count articles, they'll probably keep counting articles, but if you give them the opportunity to be rewarded in a different way, they can open their eyes for different talents and different career paths in the future. So, and then now I notice that it's so hard work to really implement such a new strategy.
Yeah.
We started local at one PhD school, and now we're moving from one PhD school to the next. But eventually, we want to work together with the recognition and reward committees and introduce it everywhere.
Yeah, that would be great. So I'm thinking, why? Could you tell us? Is it so bad to work with metrics? Why do we want to get rid of metrics?
Well, I should correct you, Jeroen. I don't think we should get rid of metrics totally. Probably the answer is in the middle. Articles will always be important, but it's good to realize that researchers can also have other skills which are difficult to count or evaluate, for example. Well, as a doctor, how do you grade empathy? That's a difficult word, actually. Some skills are, perhaps you can tell a story about it, but you cannot grade it.
Right. I was actually, somebody said to me, you as a PI, so me as a PI, you shouldn't be so happy about your article in Brain. Brain is a journal in our field that it has a high impact factor. And I said, well, I can still be happy about a publication in Brain as long as I don't automatically assume that that makes me a great scientist. You know, it's part of a story. It's part of a story that you're building. And sometimes there is a publication in Brain. Sometimes there is, a publication in a much lower impact journal that is really good for patients. So we need to have, again, that diversification, I think.
And can I add something? Because I think it is a cultural change. You know, like you were also raised in the system that Brain was fantastic. So we all have that tendency to say, well, we publish in Brain, so this is great. And if you publish in a lower impact journal, that you're not sharing it. So I think it's really something that the whole system, bottom up, top down, we have to do this together. And I think it's great if someone says, hey, why are you so happy about this Brain paper? And shouldn't you be also happy about the other to open that discussion? Because because I think it's the cultural change that needs to happen on all from the PhD students until the people that are the bosses of the universities, because we have to do it all together. And I think cultural change takes time, but I think talking about it and also pointing each other towards, hey, you're making that mistake, or hey, you're doing this, why are you doing this, and then hear the story behind it, because obviously you can still be proud of your Brain article, and you should be able to.
Now, for me, it's an honor and privilege to welcome the missionary Minister of Education, Culture and Science, Ingrid van Engelshoven. She is here on screen with us. We just spoke 1 minute before the audience saw you, Minister van Engelshoven, and you've already you've been to the University of Amsterdam and also spoke there with young academics, we've learned.
Yes, I did. And what I see is that they are very eager to put a new system of recognition and rewards into their systems. It's still, there's still a lot to try out and to find out. But what I see, and especially in these troubling times, people are really looking for new forms of leadership. They see the great importance of innovation in education, in leadership in education, and this should be also seen within the rewards system. So I think all we've been through last year made it even more urgent to make steps forward in a new system of recognition and rewards.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I think that's also one of the takeaways of today, the position of our young academics.
Yeah. So I've been extremely inspired today by the young people, by the early career scientists that we've spoken to. I think that what has been very clear from the beginning and is still very clear now is that young people really want a different system, really strive and hunger for a more inclusive and a broader perspective on their careers. Today, I've seen them discuss the implementation of our position paper in their respective universities, in their respective university medical centers. I've seen them be enthusiastic about certain types of narratives and ways of looking at their careers. So I'm really enthusiastic, and I think that this is absolutely the driving force for the success, the eventual success of recognition and rewards.
Yeah, and maybe also zoom in a little bit on what our minister said with regard to this last year. This last year, you've seen our teaching staff and support staff really adapt to the changing needs in education, showing lots of creativity and innovation and flexibility. And that should then also be rewarded, and also in a lasting perspective, and not only in this last year. And it shows also the necessity to have good teachers that are innovative and that can have room to be experimenting in teaching, and also then in the end of the career or in the end of the year be assessed for that. So the COVID is terrible, but on the other hand, it shows that we absolutely need to value what we do in our teaching domain.
And it showed that the hearts and minds of our academics were with their teaching.
Absolutely, and with our students. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Everyone who was here today and everyone in their network and to bring this further.
Yeah, absolutely.
But if I see these young scientists, I'm not worried. I can see them, and I can see them being so enthusiastic and working with this new brave new world. I'm very enthusiastic about that as well. Yeah.
Yeah. Would you like to share some final thoughts on today and on this year?
Well, I think that we must be very grateful as well, because this was a year where the work pressure has increased even more, where we asked a lot from our staff, homeschooling your kids, taking care of parents that may be ill, working from home, totally changing your education. I don't have to explain. And then still finding such a large group committed to this program, I could never have expected that. So I'm actually really grateful for people still showing the commitment, besides all the challenges that they face.
Yeah, and that are the people who are here today.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Yeah. And Jeroen, do you have some final thoughts?
Yeah, I fully agree. I'm very proud and also amazed by how much has been done already. I was chatting a little bit with my own PhD students in the break, who are also following the discussions today, and they say, "Wow, so much has been done since 2019 when we started," and I think they're absolutely right. I'm proud, and I'm very happy that we have a system here, not in the least by the support of our minister, who has done a great job. And we have a system here that allows for this discussion to be held.
Yeah, and that you can really work together with organizations. So a final question also for our minister. What do you think is most important for us for moving on with this change we strive for in our endeavor to change the system of recognition and rewards? What do you think is most important for us?
Well, in the first place, let me make a big compliment to you, because when we first spoke each other, Rianne and Jeroen, about recognition and awards, it was an idea and a paper and the start of a movement. And for me, I think it's the start of one of the biggest transitions we are in our academia. Very important. And I just want to repeat what Rianne just said, is what we have to do in the coming months and the coming year is make it more visible, more tangible, to keep the spirit going. Because what I see is a lot of young people in academia they can't wait, and everyone sees the need to make this change. But well, if we want to keep it going, and when you want to lead by example, we really must make it visible and tangible, so that everyone can see what it can do. And I really think this is an important step towards new leadership, towards a new way of working in our academia. So let's go for 2021. Take the next step, make it tangible, make it visible, and then again a year from now, another big step will be taken. I'm very confident.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your compliments and for being here with us this afternoon. I think we had a really inspiring day today. And so the desired cultural change is really fundamental change of beliefs. And I think that sharing good practices and experiments and that will really initiate the desired movement and bring this movement further.